Hey everybody, I decided to make this video because a lot of you guys always ask me, you say, how many champions should I main? In other words, how many champions should you learn? How many champions should you master for ranked? How many do you want to learn? I mean, there's a lot of champions in the game, so realistically, do you want to know all of them? Do you want to know 7? Do you want to know 3? And so this video is, I'm going to give you my answer, and then I'm going to defend it, and we're going to talk about that. Okay, so how many champions should you master? I would actually say, or I guess I have here how many champions should I learn. I would actually say the answer is somewhere probably around, I'm going to say 3 to 4. That's a fair amount, I'd actually say. And why should you learn 3 to 4 champions? Well, that answer actually seems pretty obvious to me. Bans, picks, bad picks. So in other words, if your champion gets banned or your opponent picks that champion, or they first pick and you have a bad pick into that champion. All these are situations where you'd want to know more than one champion, right? So how do you know who you want to main and how do you know how many you want to main? And the reason I say 3 to 4 is pretty simple. You want to learn one champion. And here, let me go into Paint to try to draw what I mean here. So let's say this is the champion that you learn, but unfortunately your opponent's counter pick, or maybe they first pick a champion, and this is a champion who's good into you, and they first picked it. So do you want to play your champion into that? No, obviously not. You would get destroyed. So I would say, and this is just, once again, this is my opinion, and I'm going to defend it, is that a good champion to main, in addition to your main champion, is a champion who beats the champions that your champion does poorly into. As a good example of this is if you're playing Aatrox, Jax is a good pocket pick. And I think that's a good way to put it, a pocket pick, because if they play something like Aurelia, then you can pick Jax. Whereas, on the other hand, Aatrox also covers a lot of the weaknesses of Jax. A lot of those ranged champions would beat the shit out of Jax. Aatrox is a good pick into that. So if you're second picking, 90% of champions in the game are going to... You're going to do good into them with either Aatrox or you're going to do good into them with Jax. So by learning these two champions, it's good to do that. As an example of that, let's say you're learning Garen. Now, what is Garen weak into? Garen is probably weak into champions like Kayle, Quinn, Jace, those sorts of picks. Those sorts of picks are weak into, let's say, Aurelia. So if you have Garen and you learn Aurelia, if they first pick Kayle or they first pick Quinn or they first pick Jace, then you don't want to pick Garen into that. You can pick Aurelia. Now, in addition to that, I would say another good thing to do is to have that third pick. What is that third pick for? Now, let's write this down. Covering your main pick. So, in this example, in this situation, I've thrown forward the idea that your main pick, you're going to have one main pick, right? I just want to add right here, by the way, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave a comment down below. All these things help me out a lot, and they support me immensely. These things help make the videos more popular by user engagement and stuff like that. Assuming the default thing here is to cover your main pick. So you have one pick that covers your main pick. What should your second pick be? I would say your second pick should be a second main pick. Why? Because not all the champions that cover your main pick are good, safe first picks. So in the example I just gave, Jax has a lot of counter picks, a lot of champions who, if you first pick Jax, will utterly stomp you. Actually, I want to put an addendum here. A lot of these things apply to champion select, and a lot of these things apply to ranked. You don't need to do this. If you just want to go into rank and have fun, you can do that. Nobody's forcing you to have to learn all this stuff, okay? You don't need to do any of this. It's just my response, I guess, to people asking, and it's just how I would look at the situation and how I would give you an answer. If you're thinking, if you're reading or watching, I guess, if you're watching this video and you're thinking to yourself, man, Hashinshin, these things don't sound fun to play. I just want to play Garen. Can I just play Garen? Yeah, go ahead, dude. Just go play Garen all day. It doesn't really matter that much. Particularly at the lower ranks, most people won't try to counterpick. This is primarily, if you're like plat or above, this is more where you're going to start seeing this stuff. So anyway, a lot of these champions who are good at counterpicking are then themselves good at being counterpicked. Or I should say bad at being counterpicked. They don't do well on the first pick. So Aurelia has to deal with champions like Jax. Jax has to deal with Jace, Kennen, Quinn, all that stuff that just sort of pokes him out of range and he just gets obliterated. So I would say the third pick you'd want to have, and once again, this is just my example and I'm defending it, I would say a second main pick. For me, what I did is actually, I think I'm rather clever and ingenious with this one. My second main pick is Sion. Now, why Scion? Because if they ban Aatrox, and this is why I would recommend having a second main pick, is ban, because a lot of these champions that you would want to play will actually get banned fairly frequently, because the more popular and powerful a champion is, the more they're going to get banned. So if a champion is banned, you want to have a champion as a backup. So I guess this is, that's what I'm saying. There's a second main pick, backup pick, okay? I have Scion, because if Aatrox gets banned, one of Aatrox's best matchups is into Scion. So if I ban Irelia and they ban Aatrox, I basically get to pick Scion, and 2 of my worst matchups are banned out. I've actually done this champion select in a really ingenious way. I kind of get rewarded for my opponents trying to target ban me. If we go like this, you have your main pick, you have a pick to cover your main pick, and you have a second main pick. Now, obviously, in this situation, the more champions you know, the better. So from here, when you guys are asking me, how many should I learn? All of them. Learn every champion, ideally. It's just, you won't be able to master every champion. This is more like the minimum. So when I say 3 to 4, I would also say, because in this situation, not every champion is good into every champion. So even if I have a secondary pick like Jax isn't going to be that great into every champion. So I also know Kled, you guys have seen me play Kled a lot, Set, I sometimes play Renekton, but he's a little bit, these days. So I would actually say a good, once you're out of learning champions, once you know a lot of champions, honestly, have 5+ picks that you know. Now, what does this keep you safe from? Patches. What do I mean by patches? I mean Riot nerfing your shit. Very frequently, your champions can be nerfed into the ground, and in this situation, it's better to have more picks that you know. Just as an example, when Aatrox was kind of shitty, and he was kind of getting butt blasted early this year, I played Tom Kench, I played Dr. Mundo, I played a lot of those champions that I wouldn't play right now. So I kind of, and this is what I'm going back into, I'm gonna put that right there, as many as you can. I would say that. I think that's really the best way to describe this. As many as you can, but 3 to 4 ideally is how many champions you should learn. The more champions you know, the safer you are from patches, the more you can recover, the more you can keep ranking up. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where all you do is play Garen, and you got plat with Garen. Well, if Garen eventually gets nerfed, what are you gonna do? Have you learned any other champions? Have you gotten good at the game? Probably not. And the thing is, learning champions can be difficult, and you might not rank up the most by learning those champions, but it makes you safer. And again, the thing is, ranking up doesn't really do that much for you. The more you rank up, the harder people you have to fight. If you only play your main champion and you rank up the hardest you can by only playing your main champion, you're gonna find yourself at a rank where all you can do is play your main champion, or you're gonna feed. So in a lot of ways, diversifying your roster might temporarily make you weaker, but it's going to make you stronger as a player, particularly, once again, because some champions have strengths that are, those strengths cover things that you need to learn. To throw out an example here, once again, is Garen, you might get used to being able to be poked out and then just sort of recover. If you get used to that and then you try to pick up Jax has no way to recover HP. So you might be playing Garen and getting stomped on by Jace and stuff, but thinking to yourself, well, at least I can recover HP and get back into this lane. And if you try to apply that same mentality to Jax, you're not going to do good. And I don't think that'd be a very good thing to do. As for the rest of this, I think that about covers it. You want 3 to 4 champions ideally, and I would say that's kind of the minimum. From there, I would actually say you want 3 to 4 champions that you're good at, and then a roster from there to cover you. So originally, you're probably going to have a main pick that you're really good at, a secondary pick, a third pick that you're okay at. Ideally, have 3 to 4 champions eventually that you're really good at, because again, the more champions you know, the better, particularly as a top laner. The more you can counter pick, and the more, what's the right way to put it, specifically you can counter pick. So yeah, you could maybe counter a champion on Jax, but what if there's another champion who counters even better? And what if you could play that champion? You would do even better. Or what if champion A can counter champion B, but their team is really bad for champion A, so you don't want to pick him? Well, you could go to your champion C, another champion who also counters them, who isn't that bad into their team. It's really important to know, and I think the low ranks don't really get this. So kind of in conclusion here, a lot of these things that I'm saying are really important for champion select. I'm gonna write that right there. Champion select is very important. A lot of you guys tried to deny that or not talk about that. Champion select is very important, and that's where this is all coming from. If you could get into a perfect world where you can only play normals and you could always guarantee that you get your champion in normals, none of this applies to you. If you're in ranked, with bans, with picks, with counter picking, with all that stuff, this is where this starts to get way more important. However, an important thing to note, even with maining one champion for normals, is that patches will still sometimes, let me try that again, patches will still sometimes screw you over. Just know as many champions as you can. Don't try to overly become a niche one trick. Don't be one of those people who gets banned out and then everyone in champions like groans because they're going, He's got a 30% win rate when not on Riven. Yeah, how many champions should you know? Ideally, as many as you can. Or I should say, ideally, as many as you can, but just ideally have 2 Ls? That looks more correct to me. 3 to 4, ideally. A main pick, a counter if your second pick and that your main pick isn't safe, a second main pick for if you get banned out. Yeah, that's about it. So thank you all for watching. I hope that clarifies some things to you guys, and I hope that allows you to understand champion select and the ranked process more, because particularly some of you, you're not really good at champion select. A lot of you are very bad at champion select, in fact, and you can climb a lot better, kind of learning that champion select is way more important than you give it credit. It's like a tool in your roster that you can use. It's a skill. It's something, it's important. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for that. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to leave a comment down below on your opinion and things like that. You know, tell me your opinion. How many champions do you know? How many champions have you learned? You know, all that stuff is cool. So thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You can see a link in the description to support me on Patreon. That supports me and videos like this. So thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.